Hey folks, welcome to Bear Mountain. Well, this week we're just kind of doing a couple of things here. I kind of wanted to show you what we're doing on the fertilizer front, and then kind of walk you through how the tomato house is doing. It's looking actually really pretty good. And then we're going to show you a little bit of a project we're working on, bringing a tunnel back, and what we're doing to kind of rehab that. So let's start out with, taking a look at fertilizer. Now, we've done a number of videos on Jadam liquid fertilizer and how we do it. Basically, we've got some specific types that we've made from crop residues. And then we have our base fertilizer, which is usually a grass or broadleaf weed, or in some cases, some very succulent things such as like pea vines or comfrey and those type things. We tend to, when we're making these fertilizers, is stay away from things that have reached the stage of senescence, meaning that they got to the point where they're starting to put on their seed heads, or their stems now are more have more cellulose or that, so they're more rigid, because they don't tend to actually decompose very well in an anaerobic decomposition. Now, what we're doing here in our barrels and our buckets is it's basically the same process of decomposition they use to make biogas. And except in this case, we're not capturing any gas. What we're doing is we're trying to use anaerobic decomposition to extract the nutrients from the parts of the plant material we're putting in there. So we kind of focus in on is plant material of anything that's, in an active growing stage and newer growth, which tends to have a lot more of the nutrients in it, and try to stay away from things that are senescing out. And it does a couple of things. First, it makes it decompose a lot faster, but secondly, it's really got the highest amount of nutrients in it for what we want to do into making a liquid fertilizer. We actually finished off one of our 50-gallon barrels, and what we did is we had to redo this one. So I'm going to open this guy up, and then we're going to take a look on the inside. Now, what we do is we have these caps here, and they're kind of loose fitting, so that they can, any gases that are in the inside can build up. But it also, what it does is they're screwed in lightly, so there could still be a little bit of wiggle to it, so gas could get out, but insects can't get in. So you're not going to get a lot of flies or other things trying to get in there. And then this is just basically your standard barrel ring, and it's just a matter of getting it off. And doing it sometimes with one hand is a little tricky, but I can get it off here. There we go. Now, this barrel that we did here, I filled it about, I'd say this is its fourth week. And so I'm going to open it up for this time just to see where things are at, and give it a good stir to let out any gases that might be trapped in it. Because sometimes too, what happens is gases that get trapped underneath like a floating cap, so to speak, of the decomposing material tends to push it up towards the top. And I want to make certain I get those things back down under the liquid itself. So the magical reveal. And ew, it's stinky stuff. It actually doesn't smell that bad as fertilizer goes. And you can kind of see there's still stuff it's kind of floated up, and it's kind of gone down a little bit. This was primarily comfrey, weeds such as some green thistle, pea vines, some grass that had not gone to seed stock, and basically some weeds such as purslane and a couple of other weeds that I'm not really that familiar with, but it was all basically broadleaf stuff. So what I'm going to do here is just give this guy a quick stir. And yeah, see, it's got a cap on it, and you can kind of see, boy, yeah, when you hit that cap, it just starts to move down, and there we go. So this actually doesn't even hardly look as much like the stuff I put in there. And when I did this barrel before, I packed it up all the way, I'd say roughly to about here on the barrel, so it wasn't that far from the top, and filled the rest with water. And it was packed actually pretty tight when I put all that stuff in. And so these things are starting to rot down pretty fast. And some of this stuff, I mean, I'm trying to build this up for next year because I got enough of fertilizer from in my other barrel over here to get me through the rest of this season. So the whole point for this one next will be for next year is to get about well, I'll have roughly, I'll probably put a little more water in it because there's probably some evaporation going on, but it'll be roughly about probably 45 gallons of material. And when this thing finishes off too, what happens is this stuff just continues to rot and continues to rot. And like when I made this barrel the first time, it was packed full just like this. And when it was finished, there was just basically some residue down at the bottom. I would say probably was about that much down at the bottom. So a lot of it had rotted out, and I just left that in there. I mean, I suppose that, going through a few cycles at some point, we're going to have to dump the residue out. But when this thing was aged for 2 years, it had no odor to it at all. And actually, the odor in this one isn't too bad right now. Got it all stirred in. Had to take a little break here because it took 2 hands to do it. But basically, what you see on top is some air bubbles, and got most of the material back underneath the water again. I've lost a little bit of water in here through evaporation, so like I said, probably in a week or two I'll come back and put in some more water just to kind of bring it back up to the level I kind of want to probably be right about an inch or so from the top. And the barrel itself, I mean, being a black barrel in this nice plastic hoop house, it's going pretty good because daytime temperatures in here kind of cranking this thing up over 80 degrees. So it's rotting out really fast. And I think, from that standpoint, this stuff is probably, I mean, technically I could probably use it in another couple of 3 weeks, but I'm going to let it age through the winter, and then it'll be great for next spring. And that's all there is to it. It's just basically, like I said, the crop residues, the grasses, the weeds, and some leaf mold soil, a little biochar to help cut down on the odors, and just let nature do its thing. Pretty simple, and creates a great fertilizer. So I thought I'd take you through a little walk here on the tomato side of things. I'm getting a little bit too much heat in here, I think, because I'm starting to get leaf curl, and I think that's going to be a problem. These guys should, I think the variety here is Moscovich, so these are slicers, and the last 3 or 4 here on the end. And so I got to get the tunnel vented a little more, but you can kind of see I am wrapping it around the string as it grows. I'm making sure I'm taking out all any side growths that are happening at the leaf nodes, and it's just a matter of coming through here every day or so, and kind of just taking a look at the plants and making sure everything's okay. So I think I'm going to be hitting some pretty hot weather as we move into July. So I'm going to put like a 30% shade cloth over this to kind of maybe take some of the intensity out. Some of the other varieties doesn't seem to be affected by the heat as much, but I am getting, like I said, leaf curl. You can kind of see that. See how it curls and cups. And so that is kind of an indicator that there's a little bit of stress going on here. But we still are getting tomatoes setting on. I mean, here's an example of some great paste tomatoes. This variety right here is Paisano, and they've already set on one level already. And I got, more coming, and the plant just will keep growing up. And so we'll keep getting stuff set on. So it's not actually doing too bad. And over here, these are our cantaloupes. I'm going to be doing something, I think, I wasn't originally planning on. I was just going to kind of let them spread out. But I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a trellis in. I got to put up some kind of like maybe T-post in, and then put like a something over the like a T joint over the top, a PVC T joint, and then run across wise that I can tie up my cantaloupes. And I'm thinking about raising them that way. I could save space in here, and not just be sprawling all over the place. And what you see right here are anemones. I'm continually amazed under the electroculture how these anemones, which are clearly way out of their season, are actually growing really healthy. And this is inside of a tunnel that has pretty high heat. I would have thought, you know, by this time these guys would be getting burned back, but they're not. It's pretty wild. I actually got a anemone flower off of these guys. And this is the end of June. It's kind of weird. But this is all under the electroculture area. They seem to be doing really well. And I guess I'm not really sure, you know, what drove them to germinate under this area other than the electroculture, because they didn't germinate anywhere else in the hoop house. So overall, though, tomatoes are looking pretty good. You can kind of see over here is the Florida weave, and these are all the determinant types, and it's almost ready now to go again with a fourth level of string on it. They're actually growing kind of pretty fast. I was kind of surprised at how much they put on in a week. We did the third level here just a few days ago, and I've got some varieties that are already, you know, kind of blown past it by, you know, at least, well, in that one's case is probably at least 6 to 7 inches. So it's time to go again. Like in this variety right here, it seems to be handling the heat better in the tunnel, and it's called Big Beef. And you can kind of see the leaves on it don't seem to be exhibiting the same kind of curl. Brandywine's actually doing pretty good too. It seems to be, it's like when we get into the varieties like Paisano and Amish paste, I'm getting a bit of leaf curl on it. I'm not sure. Maybe it has to do with we're closer to the entrance of the tunnel and we're getting a better cross breeze. I don't know. But overall, we're not losing any tomatoes. They're setting on, so things are still looking pretty good. Let's take a walk over to the other tunnel and the project we're working on and kind of give you an update of how we're bringing this tunnel back to production. Okay, this tunnel is 17 feet wide and 100 foot long. And I took this out of production 2 years ago when we were our last season as flower growers. Actually, yeah, it was May of 2022. We stopped raising anything in here. And it kind of went fallow. I kind of kept things just generally cut down. But last year, with a whole bunch of other things going on, I kind of had to let things go in here. And I sealed it up to kind of get high heat, so I try to kill stuff off. And for the most part, it did kill off most of the stuff in here, except the blackberries and some of the thistles, who, for some reason, that high heat, I mean, we would be in here, because I had both the ends way back there, that end shut down, had the sides all the way down. It was way over 100 and something in here, and I would have thought that that would have killed everything off, but didn't happen that way. And so we ended up pulling out a lot of blackberry vines out of here. I had to dig them out. And what I'm doing, though, is all the refuse that was in here. Now, I've got so much weed seed in here anyway, so there's no real way for me to say, oh, well, if I take everything out of here, you know, I won't have any weeds, because I'll have a ton of weeds. So I'm taking a different tact on this. And what I'm doing is you can kind of see, I put, this is fresh cut grass that I cut back in, well, it's not fresh anymore, but I cut way back in May before the seed heads were set. So there's not so many seeds in that. The seed heads actually hadn't got to the point where they were blooming. And so what I'm left here with is kind of a clean hay in a sense. And I'm going to be putting that down on both sides. I've got the center here done, and I've got most of this side done. And this side over here is the next side I have to do. And what you can kind of see is some of the woody material that you're seeing laying down is chopped up blackberries and chopped up what were centenarians years ago. So those guys are all basically going to be rotting down underneath the hay that I'm going to be putting on here. In the center, excuse me, my voice is kind of, pollen's been bothering me again. In the center, we're raising our winter squash and pumpkins. And I've already got the first group of squash. This is acorn squash. I've got a couple of different varieties, and these guys came up pretty fast. And I'm going to thin them down to about 3 plants in a hill, but they'll be in the center. And then off to the sides, what I'm going to be doing is a lot of, until, it gets impractical to do so, I'm not going to use the drip as much as I'm going to be using overhead watering. I will get the drip lines laid out because there will reach a point where it's not going to be practical to do overhead water. But what I want to do in the short term is I want to apply JMS in here, the Jadam microorganism solution, and then overhead water to get the material underneath the hay to basically rot down. And then when any weed pops up, like here's a great example. This is a nightshade. It's trying to come out of this. I'll either throw some more mulch on the top of it or just make sure I come back and, cut it down until, things start spreading in here and I can't really get to it. But so the whole idea is to get it kind of soaked. So if there is some light getting down below the mulch and getting to the point where it can activate a weed seed, that they'll get germinated and I can take care of them before the squash kind of takes over in here. I did find a couple of geraniums that were still alive, and I'm trying to bring those guys back. That one is a form of Lady Plymouth that doesn't, it basically lost its, it used to be a bicolor, but it's now just a straight kind of a laced leaf geranium. And then I've got one called Autumn Chocolate, and that one is right here. And it's just now starting to come back out. You can kind of see, if you look at the leaves, you can see that there's actually like, 2 different colors to it. And these geraniums, once they get established, get growing back up again, they'll be 3 or 4 feet tall. And the same over here. This is a tar of rose, so I have a little bit of that coming back. So I have some, geraniums that I'm just going to kind of keep in. Denise likes those for her cut flower arrangements, and they seem to be pretty hardy. I tried to kill them off, but they just didn't quite die. And I got another one back here, and as you can kind of see, I've got a lot of weeds growing in the pathways. This is all going to get covered with straw, and then I'll mulch up around the geraniums. I've done the first real heavy watering on this back side of the tunnel, and any of the refuse that I dug out, what I did is I just chopped and dropped it. So this stuff is just going to get covered with a grass, the hay mulch, and just continue to wet it down until it rots into the ground. And it's going to take us a while to get rid of the thistle out of here. It's a perennial weed, and it's going to take a while for it to be killed off. We'll just have to keep working at it. But this is kind of, it's already lost some volume just by watering it today. It's already sunk down probably about 4 or 5 inches because it had a lot of air in it. But all this stuff is going to rot down and should, it's just a form of sheet mulching to get rid of it. Otherwise, I'd be hauling probably, gosh, I don't know how many yards of material out of here, and I would still have a weed problem. So, I mean, I'm not gaining anything by moving this out. As a matter of fact, what I'm doing is I'm losing, some nutrients and things from the stuff to just let it rot in. We can keep the tunnel vented pretty good. We'll probably put well, I know I'm going to be putting an electric fence thing around it like I did the tomato house. And that way to keep the deer out of here and any other varmint that might want to, kind of come in here and explore. But the next year, what we're going to be able to do in here is use the side beds, and this will be perfect for raising things like dried beans or other crops of that kind of nature to kind of get them established in here. I think depending on how well things are rotted down by the end of the season, I may want to try to put a cover crop in here, but we'll see how it goes. Well, it took me a while to get all the stuff chopped up in here and get it dropped and get the blackberries dug out. As you can see from the picture, a pile of blackberries. Took out quite a few pretty major sized plants, and it's amazing that all that growth in those plants happened in about two seasons. So I suppose I should have never let the tunnel go fallow, but I didn't need them, and it seemed like, with other things that were going on at the time, and we just didn't make any sense to spend a whole lot of effort in here. But now we want to bring this back into, some production with food and maybe some flowers interspersed and things of that nature. Try to get it, integrated into, raising things that, you know, will be a little more protected, and we'll get a little more productivity out of them, similar like we did to the tunnel where we were in earlier in the season, where we had all our peas and things of that nature. Those guys are finishing off, and I've been pulling those things out, and we're moving on to the next crops in there, which are green snap beans, and also too our dried onions for the season are starting. The tops are starting to fall over, and the bulbs are gotten some good size. So it looks like the harvest for that's not going to be too far off either. So yeah, even this summertime, it's like, once you one of the things I've learned this the hard way, yet I keep making the same mistake over and over again, is you just got to keep up on this stuff. Otherwise, it's amazing how much biomass some place can make, and something like this tunnel. I mean, it's huge. Like I said, if I had to scrape all this stuff out of here, get it down to bare dirt and till it, or do whatever, it would be it would be like I'd probably pull out, a good 20 yards of just refuse that, ultimately in the end I'd make compost out of it anyway, and then haul it back in. So it doesn't make any sense. So that's what I've been up to. Sorry I didn't get a video out last week. Kind of got busy with a lot of things, and it just kind of got away from us. We had a lot of harvest, and putting up some fruits and things like that. It's a pie cherry season too now, so we got that going on. Blueberries, things are just, starting to move. So want to thank you guys for watching. Again, I kind of apologize for my voice. It's just like has something to do with the pollen in the air this time of year. So you guys take care. We'll catch you on the next video. Bye-bye.